Yeah, let's get started because boy, have we got a ton today. Welcome, everybody. Let me just throw this link into chat so you can follow along at home. It feels like the old times. Like there's so much awesomeness that has happened here. We got to dig in and get going. So first off, let me dive in with the product statement. Obviously, forward-looking statements may be made. Please don't make purchasing decisions based on forward-looking statements. If you're still on IntelliJ, probably for code repository reasons, current version is 3.86. Make sure you're staying up to date because there's been, like I say, so much changing. It is wild. So you want to keep up to date on that extend plugin, or else you're going to see some strange instability. Now, before I dive into all the new feature stuff, let me throw over to Nick for DevRel divinations. There are a ton.
Thank you, Clint. Well, I'm here to tell you all about Workday DevCon 2026. We announced a lot of good stuff on last week's developer program update call. Highly encourage you to check that out. If you visit this link to the DevCon page, you'll be able to be the first to get updates about DevCon. Spoiler alert, registration is going to open early March. So I'm bringing it up now because by the time we have our next Wizard session and hear about Clint's trip to the Bahamas, you will already be registered for DEF CON, right? You will have your early bird discount. You will see on that page, you also can have 7 different kinds of Workday developer swag with early bird pricing for that as well. 10% off any of those swag orders before April 1st. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you at DEF CON in person, rocking these amazing bits of kit. I'm especially excited. It's not live yet, but it'll be live super soon. I'm especially excited about the zip up sweater. We heard that from just about everybody that, hey, Nick, all these pullovers, that's great. But I really just want one of these that does that thing. And guess what? I do too. Leave it to the brilliant creatives at Workday's brand office to make some amazing swag. So I have a sneak peek picture of that on the page for today's call. But something I'm extra excited to show you is your theater session pitch. Now, if I am clever, which is not guaranteed, I'm happy to show a sneak peek if I can steal screen stuff. Is that possible? I'm gonna steal screen stuff. So, in theory, this goes live quite literally at the end of today's call. It's supposed to go live, what for me in US Central Time is noon. So, right after we hear about Moji Magic, this goes live. But I'm going to show it to you anyway. So, this year we have something called a theater session pitch. If you don't like those words, guess what? It's basically a CFP, but we felt very strongly that these words sold it better. So the whole point of this developer conference, right, is you don't just want to hear about things, you want to see them. You want me to show you, not just tell you. We want you to skip the fluff. We want you to show what broke for you. How did you fix it? How did you master it? How did you use all the pieces of Workday build together to make something awesome? Show us. We really, really want live demo. These are going to be these 20-minute lightning theater session formats in the expo at DevCon, and we want to have you there. We do have some tips for inspiration, right? How do you use all the things together? I think it was Clint that said there's magic in the intersections. And whenever I say that
That's
in
where the
front of
fun is.
executives, they love it, Clint. And I just haven't told them that I stole it. But we want to hear about your developer journey, hear about how you're using Workday AI, hear about your curiosity. And again, really emphasize, please, what are you going to demo? Because at the end of the day, we want that expo to be alive with not only very live demo, but your very live and very awesome theater sessions. As always, complimentary conference only pass to Workday DevCon, not including the add-ons if you are chosen as a speaker. You'll hear about if you were chosen as a speaker in mid-March, but this is going to open today and it's going to end next Friday. It's possible that we may reach out to you as well to say, hey, we really think you'd be a fit for something that we know we want to talk about, but this is your chance to tell us what you want to talk about. The last thing I'll say on this is super duper sneak peek. We're going to have 4 tracks this year. We're going to have a dedicated agentic track, an analyze track that covers Data Cloud and Prism, a track for connections, think interoperability, integration, orchestration, what have you, and then extend, all about building agentic applications. You may say, and this was a month of my life spent. Nick, aren't agents going to be all over DEF CON? And the answer is yes, of course. But when we tried to fit that into like the three existing tracks, there was a giant track and two other tracks. So we said, you know what? This sure looks like it needs to be the lead singer of the band with these other guys rocking the drums, the bass, lead guitar, what have you. So if you're like, hey, I have an awesome thing and it crosses all of these things, good. That's actually better, right? So don't get too hung up on which track it belongs in. We will trade those horses for you so you don't have to. But we want to hear from you. Please submit your theater session pitch today if you can, and you have through the end of next week to do it. I am sure we're going to get some wildly awesome submissions from the folks on this call. So thank you to Chris and Clint for hosting me real fast. And honestly, we can't wait to see you at DevCon.
Awesome. So let me take that sharing back, get my chat and point it at everyone because I'm a goof.
And look at that swag. They gave us ASCII art. They gave us socks. We didn't ask for that. They were inspired. They even gave us a glass. They said Workday doesn't do glasses, but we're going to give you a glass to put
Nice.
a beverage
Put
in.
coffee in that.
Yes, coffee. Exactly. I'm going to put some diet sodas, about 1,000 different kinds of diet sodas in there. But you do the math. If you're up late coding, you put what you need in there. No, we're not going to judge, but we would love for you to be rocking a DEF CON glass.
Awesome stuff. As usual, the developer program update call has already happened for this month, but there's another one coming up next month. And don't forget the Wake Up with Workday. There's some awesome stuff with Tony. He's been doing some really cool solutions. Definitely worth checking out. So now, wow, has there
Take,
been an awful lot
take a
of
breath.
updates? So many. Yeah, so this is super cool. And let me just start at the beginning. I want to work my way through here. First off, Developer Copilot for APIs. If you are just getting started with the API world, and there are a ton, there's REST, there's SOAP, there's WQL, there's Graph, there's all sorts of stuff here that is in different places. We got a REST API Explorer, we got a SOAP API Explorer, we got a Graph API Explorer. If you want to know, okay, how do I go get a list of workers? Check out the Developer Copilot for APIs. It's dead easy to find. Like literally, you go and right above APIs, Developer for Copilot for APIs, dive in, and just like you'd expect, live questions, live answers, away you go. So some very cool stuff up here. Definitely get them going on this one as usual. It is experimental. Please review content before use. You're definitely going to want to be reviewing that content. The other big AI update is you can now generate business objects with Developer Copilot. So you can use natural language to generate these items. This is a Workday Pro only feature. So if you're not on Pro, probably won't be able to see this, but some pretty cool stuff here. I clearly see this as, the next step to large scale AI generation of extend apps, but some cool stuff going on there. But now I want to talk about something I'm actually really excited about, which probably means I'm a nerd, and I'm okay with that. The file uploader events is wild. So you may recall that way back in the before times, before PMD scripting and all its newfangled awesomeness, we had expression language, and we were able to capture certain things about the files that you'd uploaded in a file uploader, and you tell the user before they clicked OK, oh yeah, that file isn't going to work. But then we lost expression language like 3 years ago and had real trouble trying to let users know, hey, these things are going to cause you trouble. Now you can get back into them now. I've added 2 new events, file add and file remove, that allows you to inspect what's going on and do some cool stuff there. Hi, Taylor. So yeah, I believe BOW developer sites would have access. Oh, is must be partners then, not available.
That's right. Not it's partner only, not producers. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep.
Now there's another kind of cool thing going on here, and that's enhanced user experience. Specifically, this is for accessibility. So there's some really big accessibility improvements, and I'm actually working on a project right now where I'm going to use these. And the best part is no code updates required. But it means your screen readers are going to be able to handle your grids way better. This has been an ongoing problem with Workday General, uh, but extend inheriting grids from Workday meant that these screen readers struggled a bit around grids, but now it's got header announcements, sorting announcements, field validation, better scrolling and pagination. Like there's some cool stuff that's going on. Oh, sorry, scrolling and pagination unfortunately did get rolled back on Feb 10, but the accessibility that I believe is still going there. Oh, yeah, it's just I guess it is everything. Ah! So let them know I want those accessibility improvements. I thought it was just the scrolling here. Uh, Unfortunately, there is no way to change the grid column width directly. Users have to do that on themselves. And Amit, this was the grid pagination was rolled back on February 10th. So if you're still seeing that, you want to talk to Workday, let them know that you're still seeing something on that one. But yeah, and put my name down on changing grid column width. I had a checkbox that took like a third of a screen. It was kind of crazy. There's also a rich text editor. So now we've got a rich text editor that allows you to play some things. I'm going to let Chris talk about this one because he was playing around with more rich text stuff recently, and you'll see some really cool rich text stuff in today's announcement.
That's right. We'll see some fun ways to take advantage of rich text in fun ways.
But wait, there's more. I feel like I'm on one of those infomercials. Condition rules for extend cards. This allows you to customize your homepage even more. You can now put in a condition rule on an extend card on your homepage that's allowing you to target specific audiences so you can get much better setup. Okay, these people need to see this card so they can get to this new function. So this is very cool. And even more, there's now a button that allows us to link into Workday delivered tasks and reports. So now, you know how what it's like. You want to click the button and just go to see that purchase order or that Workday item, but you couldn't. Well, now there's a button for it. So you can set this up on a button. At this point, no, Jeremy, there's no functionality to send prompt values for the reports. It does. It's just the WID. I know. I know. Um, but at least it gets us closer. I'm willing to take closer. But yeah, that would be really handy if Workday's if anyone at Workday's listening, and I see some of you on the call, that would be really handy if we could actually go to a report and pass the parameters. That would be very cool. And Sushma, I'm not sure if it can be made conditional. Do you mean like the WID here? It's just a string, so yeah, you can play around with what value goes in here. Yeah, for sure. Just PMD scripting. I was trying that out on the weekend. And Niels, are the Workday task WIDs preserved between the tenants? Generally, within a customer, you'll find that they're going to be the same. If we start talking about wildly different things, like say you're a BOW producer and you're trying to sell an app to both, say, student and HCM customers, you might see differences between large factory builds. Generally, they're pretty close to the same across most builds. And if you're within a single customer, I've never seen one that wasn't with for the core Workday items. So there might be some differences, but for the most part, they're pretty much the same. And it's translating this WID to a task ID, which does stay the same. So some cool stuff going on there. And Raj, if you're trying to find the WID of a Workday delivered task, it's under Integration IDs, View IDs. So whenever you're looking at an object, do I have a tenant open? One second. And if we're looking at this, you go into the related actions, integration IDs, view IDs, and you'll find the WIDs are under that. So whatever you find up at the top, look for those integration IDs, view IDs, and that'll generally get you where you need to go. Awesome. But wait, there's even more. There's a ton of new features in Orchestrate. So we can now send RAS requests, trigger PDFs, trigger BPs within loops. Previously, you could do all these things, but you couldn't do them inside of a loop. And like at very least on trigger PDF, that was really frustrating because you often wanted to do a mass bulk load of PDFs. The one that I always heard about was doing things uh, like comp reports. You wanted to put out 1,000 comp reports. Well, you couldn't use orchestration for doing that because you couldn't do it in a loop. You're trying to do it one at a time. It took forever. So this made that really easy and way better. You can now use mutual TLS. I'm going to kind of skip over that one because it's kind of a background plumbing issue. However, there's also some very cool stuff with runtimes in Orchestrate. So we can now wait for long-running API responses. So we can actually say, hey, you know what? On my send workday API request, I can set this switch that says enable wait for long-running response, and it'll park your orchestration, wait for that response to come back, and then restart your orchestration. This can be really handy for things like managing that new 48-hour runtime that is really enabled by the 60-minute single process runtime. So this used to be 20, now it is 60. So there's been a bunch of conversations about can I use orchestration for large volume nowadays? Like, replace Studio, everybody. Yeah, that is actually becoming quite viable at this point. So now we go from a 20-minute to a 60-minute single target process, and there are a ton of things that will allow you to park that 60-minute and restart your 60-minute counter with things like long running API calls, reports, all sorts of cool stuff. There's some really neat things here. Definitely check them out. And I missed there's one more that I did miss. Where was that? File uploader events, condition rules for extends cards. I'm just going to tell you about it because there's some new PMD namespace features that are available, and one of them is format number. You can now format a number, and it works. Yay! It's kind of awesome. That allows you to, when you need 2 decimal digits and you don't want to present it as a currency, you can now do that with format number and just dump in the number of items that you need. Very handy, very useful. And I think that is everything.
Yeah, that one was grouped in with the file uploader events post. Those were
Ah,
together. That's why you didn't see it.
that's why I missed it. There was
So,
too many things
third
going
one
on
down
this.
from the.
There it is. I don't actually see it there, but it's on the release notes. And I've got the January release notes. I need the February for that, but we don't need to worry about that for right now.
So many updates. Uh,
So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Chris for some serious magic.
mhm. All right. Let me see if I can figure out how to use these computers again. Move some stuff around here. I need my real estate. All right. Can everybody see my tenant? All right. Excellent. So, today we are going to be demoing an app I wrote, and I will give everyone kind of a fair warning. There's not going to be any practical application for what we're sharing today. This is us leaning into fun. We haven't done a really fun session yet, and so this is where we're going to kick that off. Um, when I wrote this application, I was thinking about a couple things. One is like, how can we really extend scripting and bend it in ways that most people probably don't think about bending it. And in the spirit of many video games that I've enjoyed over the years, I'm thinking about this as normal extend scripting, PMD scripting is like normal mode. But once you beat normal mode and unlock hard mode, like what does hard mode look like? So today we're going to look at what hard mode in extend development is. So I've got this app I wrote, and we're going to jump into it. And so as you can see from the header here, Moji Magic, an emoji programming language. So what we're going to look at is a full programming language that has been implemented using just P&D script. There's no orchestration, so there's no like lambdas or anything like that on the outside, right? It's just pure P&D scripting. It's about 2,000 lines of code. Um, we'll do a quick lay of the land of the application just so people can understand like what the app is going to do for us. This P&D page is only about 200 lines of code, just for the presentation. All the magic, so to speak, is in a script file, a couple script files. So at the top here, where we scribe our magical incantations, I want you to think about this like Page Inspector. Okay, we can put code into Page Inspector and we can execute it, and it's going to give us an output. This input is going to do the same thing for Emoji Magic. So this is where we will plug our code in. The output's going to show down here under the emojical manifestations. I have a random number generator that I also implemented so that we can see this change, just so it's easier to see when it updates. The tome of known spells, if I run the list of spells here, there aren't any. And we'll see that later, what that is. And then this bottom part, we're just going to ignore this. I actually implemented this last year for the live demo I did at DevCon. So actually, some of you have seen this before. I did a demo during the very live demos at DevCon, or as I like to call it, the very undead demo. All right, so let's get started. It's a programming language. So what are the basics, right? What are our building blocks? We need to be able to do arithmetic, okay? So I'm going to start real simple, and I'm going to do a lot of copy and pasting because looking up emojis is a pain. All right, so 1 plus 1, and of course we're not using a standard plus operator, we're using an emoji, right? It's a plus emoji. I'm going to run that, and I'm going to make this a little bigger so people can see. Hopefully that's good size. All right, so down here, enchantment successful, outcome 2. Great, we just added 2 numbers. Not super exciting. Let's do a little more. All right, multiplication. Multiply by 5, outcome 6. So we get 5 times 1 plus 1. Now, one thing to note there, order of operations, right? Our order of operations is being respected. Excellent. Those are important things. We can also do division, subtraction, right? You would hope. But we have some other things that we've added that, in fact, it's not the one I wanted. They actually changed some of the names, funny enough, of the emojis on me. I have a cheat sheet from last year and it's no longer working. Okay, so one thing in PMD script is it doesn't have a built-in operator for exponents. But in Moji Magic, we do. So I have this bolt here, and now I can do an exponent. And we can see there's our output. Cool. PEMDAS, yes. In fact, yes. Okay, so we covered most of the math. Actually, let me show you one more thing just because I like the emojis. We can also do with the abacus modulus operator because modulus is really handy, and that didn't like the mod at all. I'm gonna refresh the page real quick. Sometimes the memory likes to leak out. Let's see if it's going to cooperate reloading. Thank you. One more time. All right. So you can see our result there with the modulus operator. Excellent. So we got the math covered. What else do we need? Well, we probably need to deal with strings too, right? And instead of using double quotes, we are going to use speech bubbles. And we have a left speech bubble and a right speech bubble available in the emoji set, so we can actually have differentiating between the opening and the closing. Now, if we just do the string by itself, it's just going to output the string. Not super exciting, but maybe we want to concatenate two strings. And what better emoji for that than a cat? Run those two, and as you can see down here, concatenating strings. Okay, so this is getting a little more interesting, right? We did some math, and the math to me isn't like it's not that impressive, right? It's not that hard to do that. But then you get into the strings and it gets a little more interesting, right? Because it's a little harder. And especially when you start mixing types, right? Now I've got an integer. And what if I do two integers? Well, it concatenates like strings, right? So we have a differentiation there between what the plus operator is doing and what the concatenate's doing. String is string because it's concatenation. Again, we're differentiating a little bit between what PMD script will do and what this programming language will do. Okay, cool. So we can deal with numbers, arithmetic, strings, but we need somewhere to store the results. So we need variables. So we got variables too. So we're going to use a package or a box symbol for our declaration for a variable. Give it a name. We don't have to assign it a value when we declare it, but I'll assign it the value 5. And then optionally here, we don't, many of us, Tony, have been burned by semicolons throughout our career. We're using stop signs. So we're just getting past the semicolon issues, right? And those are going to be a lot more apparent to us too. They're going to really jump out at you if they're not there. And let's see, we want to do a quick math operation against our variable here just to see it work. So I can see the output is 10. All right, cool. Now this is more interesting to me, right? Now we've got variables. So now we're really talking. But we need more. We need more than just the math operators, strings, and variables. We need comparison operators, right? So I want to be able to say greater than, right? We can do that. So we've got this up arrow. So saying 5 is greater than 2. We get the true back. What if I say 5 greater than 5? That's false. Excellent. But what if I want to say greater than or equal to? Now we have this double up, which we're using as the equal to operation. So now we can see, okay, cool. So now we can do greater than or equal to. We also have an operator for less than and less than or equal to, which are just the down arrow and the double down arrow. Cool. All right. The other thing we're going to want is equals. We want to be able to compare and see if two things are equal to each other, right? So I can compare these two strings, and we're using a scale as our equal operator. So hello1 equal to hello, we would expect this to come back as false, and it does. Take the one away, so they're equal, and now comes back as true. We also want to be able to say not equal, of course. And so we have this operator, which is the no gesture for not equal. And let me do this just so it's more apparent. False. And if we make them not equal, true. Okay. So now we have our comparison operators covered. Oftentimes when you're programming, you want to do multiple conditions, right? So we need some logical operators, which would be an and or an or. Okay. Now, first one we're going to do is the or operator, which I very cleverly used a canoe for the or, although Clint informed me that canoes use paddles and not oars. So if we're striving to be technically correct, which is the best kind of correct, the best I think I could do with the emoji set. All right, so in this case, we have hello1 equal to hello or 5 greater than or equal to 5. So in this case, it should come back as true because one of the conditions is true, right? So we got a true here. We're all good there. But what if we want both conditions to be the same in our and? Tony, nice. All right. And if we want the and condition, we'll use a handshake. We are in agreement, right, between the two sides. And in which case, this is going to be false. All right, cool. So there's our operators for logical. What about conditionals? Can I do an if statement? Of course I can do an if statement. We're really getting into the fun stuff now, right? Like if statements. Excellent. So I'm gonna walk through the statement here, just so everybody kind of understands how it's laid out. Okay, so we have this thinking face for our if, and then we have a condition, which we could do ors and ands inside there and do multiple conditions, of course. And then we have this bullseye, which is a then signifier. Now, there's actually a lot of languages that use then in their syntax, and what I discovered while I was implementing the language is one of the reasons is it actually makes it easier to parse. So I decided to do that, made my life easier. Now, normally you want to have a signifier of your block, right? Where your if starts and ends, right? So we have these these fun open mouth and somewhat closed mouth emojis for the block. And inside, if 5 is greater than 2, it's just going to return a string that says greater. And then we're going to do this as our else. We're going to return less or equal. And one thing I will note is we also have an operator for else if, which is the monocle face. Not showing that here. One other thing I want to note is we do have a return keyword, which I'm not using here. We don't need it for this case, but I will show you what it is. It is a rocket, Clint's favorite emoji. So this will return whatever this is. And again, we can do a stop sign here. It's optional. We don't need it, right? So if I go and run this, we should expect to see greater come back since 5 is greater than 2, and that's what we get. If I change this to 2, comes back as less than equal. All right, so now we've seen the if else statements in Moji Magic, but we need more. What else do we need? Well, I want to be able to loop, right? Because loops are pretty fundamental to programming. And we're almost to the really cool stuff, the stuff that's like my favorite part. But we have to have this one other building block here before we get there. Okay, so loops. We're going to take and we're going to create a variable. I'm going to call it counter, and I'm going to start it at 0. And then we've got this loop that is effectively a while loop. Okay, so while our counter is less than 10, we're going to increment the counter by 3. Okay. And then outside of our loop, we're going to return counter. We run that and we get a result of 12. Okay. And that's what we expect, which is great because it'd be really embarrassing for me if it didn't work. Or now here's the coolest part of it all, and the reason I did this to begin with. We have tying it all together, we're going to make functions. We can create functions. So this is going to be our function we're going to look at. It's big, but it uses all the different pieces. Okay. Now in PMD scripting, when you declare a function, they're essentially anonymous, right? You create your function and you assign it to a variable, and then you use that variable to reference your function. Now, when we define them in Moji Magic, we don't assign it to a variable. We have named functions. So we use the dragon as our function keyword, give it a name, and then we give it parameters that we can pass to the function. And this can be as many parameters as you want. It doesn't have to be 1, right? It could be 0, could be 10, whatever you need for the function. We've got our scope here, open and close, right? Curly braces, basically. We've got an if statement up here, basically saying, hey, did they pass us a negative number? If they did, just go ahead and return this string. And that's where one part where we do need a return, right? We need to return on the function. We got some variables. And then we're going to run a loop here. And we're going to basically say, hey, if the counter is less than or equal to the limit that's been provided, go ahead and do these calculations. Now the function I have here is sum of squares. So it's basically going to take each number up to the number you provided, and it's going to sum it, and then it's going to square it, and then it's going to add it to the total, right? So you're just basically totaling. So if you say pass in a 3, it's going to square 1, square 2, square 3, add them all together and return the result. And then at the very end, we're going to return with some string concatenation the total, okay? Now, when I run this, I'm defining the function. I'm not executing the function. I could execute it as well because I can do multiple statements here. But for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to define it first. So if I run this, scroll down here, and we see this function, sum of squares, has been conjured. Now I can also name it anything we want. Now the tome of known spells that I talked about earlier, we click this, now we have a new function in the list, sum of squares, that can be called. So in order to call it just like we would the other function. And now, since I've defined this, I now have it in my function table. I can run it. And you can see the answer is 14, which is correct for number 3. Try it with 4, see if 4 works. 4 goes up to 30, is also correct. Now the 5 is going to fail. The reason it's failing is because memory. Now, this is one thing I wanted to show to illustrate. We have a language built on a language built on another language, right? It's like languages all the way down. And as you keep adding these abstractions, your constraints get worse and worse. So we are still limited here in what we can really do due to the memory limits with PMD scripting. But we still have a fully capable programming language here. And one thing I was thinking about when I wrote this was how cool would it be if I could take and store a function in a model object? And I can do that with Moji Magic. I can take the code, store it in a model object, and then execute it basically from the model object at runtime. And there's some interesting kind of use cases I can think of for that. I was thinking in the like, if you have let's say you have a game and people play different classes. So you've got a wizard and a knight, and they're doing battle, and each of them implements their own attack function, and they have it defined in their model object what their attack does. So the knight attacks with a sword and does his own calculations, does slashing damage. The wizard has magic missile, they do arcane damage, and the page only needs to know, hey, there's an attack function in the model object, right? It becomes this nice abstraction where all it needs to know is call attack, and each of them will provide the implementation for it. That's not something you could do with PMD scripting, but that was one of the reasons I wrote Moji Magic, because I kind of wanted to go through that exercise. Um, that's everything as far as the language demonstration. One thing I will say also, since this is all dynamic, um, and I'll jump over here just to show something in the code real quick. The way I set this up is I have this. Let me make this a little bigger for you. In the code, I have this emoji config, and it actually maps what the uh, symbol definitions are. But because this is executed dynamically and basically it's instantiated every time that you run it, right? It's stateless. You can actually pass in a new emoji config at runtime to redefine what the emojis are from your page. So just because this thing is set up to be a dragon function, a caller could say, well, I want to use a wizard or a cupcake or whatever instead. And that works, and it's very easy to do. Is there a way to reference custom functions and variables themselves as emojis? Well, the reason I didn't want to do that is just because you could certainly give them names, right? That included emojis, but I did this abstraction just because it makes it easier to do an override of what emojis you're using for each of those things. But yeah, you could certainly include emojis in the names. I think the thing you would have to be careful with would be using an emoji that is set up to be one of these operators. So, using plus in a name is probably going to break the parser. Yes, preserve spells, exactly. Uh, but you could override the set if you wanted to use it, right? You could say, well, I want to use this for one of my variable names, so I'm just going to change what the configuration is, the implementation. So you have that ability. Well, Clint, that is all I had. I do have the code posted if anyone wants to play around with it. Like I said, it's about 2,000 lines of code in this one. When you look at the code, you'll know that there's a lot of stuff in there um, for the demo purposes for DevCon. In fact, you'll see there's actually multiple pages. I was fortunate enough to get to present with Sam Rusika, one of my friends, and Sam was great. She came in having to do a demo of a new programming language that only two people in the world at that point know, and she did great. And this is her page that we built for her. She had a bakery, so you'll notice that there's a couple pages in there that if effectively the same. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. Any other questions or comments?
It's definitely worth digging into and just seeing all the madness that he got up to make this work.
Thanks, Todd. It was great as a pre-hackathon demo. Tony, I generated that sum of squares function with Claude, and it's quite easy. You just give it the definition, give it a couple examples, and it it can produce the Moji Magic code pretty handily. Yeah, large language models are incredible. So that was fun. And I see Sam is on the call. So shout out to Sam for uh demoing this with me last year. If you guys enjoyed our weird fun today, stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have more for you this year as we continue with these sessions.
You got to have fun with it. And the weird fun's the best fun.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. Cool. We've still got a few minutes. We'll hang around if anybody wants to chat about anything. Otherwise, thanks for sharing your time with us, and we'll see you all next month.